This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic of the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might want to go to community bathhouses. Our trips always end up in naked knife fights. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Cronenberg of podcasting. I'm joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man covered in tattoos from prison. That's Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Howdy ho.
See, it's funny because I have a couple of tattoos. I really thought about being like, Jake, take your shirt off, show the world, tell them what they mean. It's like, but
No, I'm actually gonna go into that later.
Okay, there you go. Good. Well, I not to bury the. There you go. I have two you can't see. Sorry. All right. So if you haven't guessed from our little openings there, today's film we were talking about is Eastern Promises, directed by David Cronenberg, written by Stephen Knight, starring Viggo Mortensen, Naomi Watts, Vincent Cassel, and Armin Mueller-Stahl, co-starring Sinead Cusack, Jerry Skolimowski, I probably did not say that right, but Mina, Donald Sumter, and Tatiana Maslany. Opened on September 8th, 2007 at the Toronto International Film Festival. Opened wide yesterday, 15 years ago, September 17th, 2007. So celebrating its 15th anniversary. Very apt. We're recording this on the 18th, but regardless.
Happy birthday to
Happy birthday, you weird ass movie.
Yeah.
Box only made $17.26 million domestically, 38.84 international. Did recoup its budget, $56.1 million on a $50 million budget. Nominated for a single Oscar, Best Actor for Viggo Mortensen. It did not win because nobody's ever going to beat Daniel Day-Lewis for There Will Be Blood. So when you're nominated against him, it's just you're fighting a losing battle.
I was reading that, and I was like, he lost to. I was
yeah, it's like, oh, he's really. Oh, okay. Yeah, nobody's gonna fault that. It was nominated for 12 Genie Awards, which is the Canadian Oscars. Won 7 of them. Did not win Best Film. I'll get into it a little bit later, but Canadian, it's heavy in the Canada, mostly for good David Cronenberg. Rotten Tomatoes, 89% for critics, 83% for audience, so pretty close, right there next to each other. I was impressed.
Shut up.
Sorry. You're fine. All right, so we're going to switch things up a little bit as far as the plot summary goes. I am actually going to start going through the plot, and Jake will stop me as we go along. Okay, so this film kind of opens on 2 central things that happen. First off, a 14-year-old Russian girl named Tatiana shows up in a pharmacy bleeding and pregnant. She is taken to a hospital where a midwife named Anna, played by Naomi Watts, delivers the baby healthy, but because of her heroin use and general distress in the pregnancy, Tatiana dies in birth. So Anna is kind of taking care of the baby at the hospital. At the same time, across the city, there is a Russian man is killed by a Chechen man and his mentally challenged nephew. His throat is slit in his barbershop, which is pretty cool. Cool way to start a movie, in my opinion.
Good opening.
Yeah. And also,
it's like, this is. I mean, it tells you what you're in for.
He's like, hey, dead woman, barely alive baby, guy viciously has his throat slit. And also, one of the things about it, I would imagine if you're actually going to slit somebody's throat, it's not, it's it was a little bit of effort to make that happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
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 So yeah,
I can
but
just tell you from the dynamics of being in a physical fight, it would be
it would be difficult. But anyway,
effort.
so those two things
Hard morning.
start off the film. They are both connected, as in the Russian mob is set up in London, and it is headed by Simeon, played by Armin Mueller-Stahl, and his son Kirill, played by Vincent Cassel. Kirill's bodyguard and cleaner is a guy named Nikolai, played by Viggo Mortensen. Nikolai is essentially just a driver and goes around and makes sure that that Kirill doesn't get into the amount of trouble that he normally does. He finds the dead Russian, cuts off his fingers, takes out his teeth, all that kind of stuff, processes them, and they throw him in the river. So they go on, and Anna finds the diary from the dead girl, and it's in Russian, and has her uncle, Jerzy Skolimowski, excuse me, her uncle Stepan.
Was that her uncle? I thought it was her stepdad.
It was her, her uncle. So her mom, she lives with her mom, following a long breakup, and her mom was married to a Russian, and her Russian uncle, Stepan, also stays with them a lot. So Stepan translates the diary, and apparently Kirill is mentioned prominently in it, and Simeon discovers this kind of through Anna's ignorance of exactly being around the Russian mob, and she's like, "Hey, I want this back," and kind of uses Nikolai to get. It's like, "Hey, can I get the diary back?" and all this kind of stuff. All the while, in the background, the Chechens kind of want revenge for what's going on with what happened with as a result of the nephew killing the Russian brothers had killed the Chechen nephew after a soccer game. And so the Chechens want revenge. And so there's a lot of going back and forth and all this, and they say, Nikolai, hey, you're a part of the Russian gang now. They give him new tattoos, and maybe my favorite scene in the movie, the tattoo scene. And then the Chechens go to find him in a bathhouse, and they try to kill him, and Nikolai is able to fight them off. And all the while, it turns out that Nikolai was an undercover FSB agent, embedded with the Russian mob, and he is able to survive his attack, and then essentially fingers Simeon for statutory rape, since he turns out to be the father of the baby, and gets him arrested. Kirill, trying to dispose of the baby and save his father, is about to throw the baby into the river, but Anna and Nikolai go and stop him. And that's kind of the end of the movie. It's kind of an anticlimactic end for all the craziness that was going on. The movie ends with Anna having actually adopting the baby, and Nikolai becomes the head of the mob. So happy ending. Not exactly.
Like it.
Yeah. So there's a lot to get into. I know you probably are a little more understanding, or at least have a better grasp of the Russian mafia in general and kind of the brutality associated with that.
Yeah.
I don't have any sort of idea of what's going on with the Russian mafia. I'm just kind of like, hey, what a cool story and all this kind of stuff. So give me a little bit of idea, like what's your background is like, what do you know about the Russian mafia? Because they're pretty wild in this movie.
Yeah. So first off, I mean, I like gangster flicks. I think I've said
Sure.
Or mob flicks, organized crime stuff. I was a criminal justice major in college, and the best freaking class that I took was organized crime.
Oh, I'll bet. It was just, you were just like, this is cool.
It was fascinating. I mean, it wasn't even work. It wasn't like, crap.
I gotta go to class. Yeah.
I have to study, or, this was like, can we have a test?
Can I have more homework, please? I want to look up more stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the definition of omerta. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a really fascinating class, and I will say, during that, the Russian mob actually fascinated me probably more than any other
Yeah.
of the organized crime groups.
Yeah, you know, you don't really. It's not really one of those things you think of Russian mobster. You know, the Italians, obviously the Cosa Nostra, all that kind of stuff. The Yakuza, obviously American mafia based off of those things. But I mean, it's Russian mafia. I mean, obviously it's Irish mobs. There's a lot of stuff with all those mob. Like, it's not necessarily the mafia that's the. When you think of mafia, it's usually Italians. And then, but Russia, I imagine it's quite expansive.
Yeah, basically, yeah, Russia can tell all the other gangs, like, hold my beer, watch this.
Well, I mean, for one thing, the government associated with it is so corrupt and probably infiltrated as well. So I mean, yeah, that's more powerful.
Yeah, so let me give some I guess historic background.
Yeah, of course.
Russian organized crime goes. So it basically came out of the prisons, which is not unique to the Russian organized crime group, but it basically it was organized in prison, and they call it Vorovi Zakon.
Okay, you heard that a couple times.
Yeah.
And
so you hear them say vor.
Vor. Yeah. Okay.
That's a made member.
Okay. The stars means you're a vor. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. When you get stars on shoulders and knees, you're a made man.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
If you want to think of it from, you know, the Italian.
Yeah.
What we're more used to. But anyways, so during the basically tumultuous history of Russia, whenever Tsarist Russia was going out and communists were taking over, the criminal side basically took advantage of the anarchy, the tumult, and set up. And so there's an interesting quote that I found, kind of explaining why so many Russians went into organized crime, why it's so there. Is during the communist era, there's a quote: "We pretend to work, they pretend to pay us." So basically living off the government or having a regular job, it's like, I'm not getting paid and I'm not really doing anything anyways. So who's the highest bidder? Who's paying? Who's gonna
why would I work for the government whenever they're gonna screw me or underpay me? It's like, what would be the advantage? Makes sense.
Right. And so really Russian organized crime flourished during all of these tumultuous eras that Russia, the Soviet Union and everything. So the funny thing is, with Russian organized crime, I think something that distinguishes itself from other organized crime organizations is the professionalism and professionalism probably isn't the word, but
I know what you mean, like the brutality more than anything else.
And a big reason for that is because they heavily recruit from Russian special forces, the Spetsnaz, and Russian police.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I mean, basically as a cop in Moscow, you can get paid this much to beat people up, or they they can pay you 3 times as much over here to beat people up.
And also there's no regulations for against beating people up when you're over there. So, I mean, you could beat the absolute crap out of them and nobody's going to like, you're not going to lose your job. So yeah.
So basically, I mean, my point is I think something that the Russian, the Vori for lack of other words, the Russian mafia has that distinguishes themselves from other groups is the level of brutality and the weaponry. Because after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was just all of these arms.
Yeah, just in the world. Yeah.
From a superpower were just out in the ether.
Yeah.
And
if you ever see the movie Lord of War, that's a perfect example of as an arms. So in the movie, Nicolas Cage is an arms dealer. Fall of the Soviet Union's best thing that ever happened to him because it puts all these arms into the world into free for all. So I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, you can kind of think of like if Bloods, Crips, Latin Kings, the Italian mob, the Irish mob, whatever organized crime we've had here. Imagine that a lot of their members are like former SEAL Team 6.
Yeah. It's a scary thought process. Like, it's like, you don't want to mess with these guys. It's like, they're not just schmoes. Like, they're not random guys who are just like off the street. It's like, no. These are serious dudes with serious training.
These ain't guys shooting like this.
Yeah. They're
sideways and just popping off rounds and doing drive-bys.
Yeah.
These are operators.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And man, are they funded.
So the other interesting thing about this film is that it takes place in England. England has extremely severe gun laws. There's not a single gun in this entire movie. It's not only knives.
I didn't think about that.
That's the reason, because they operate in England, they can't use guns. And even they talk like Stepan, the uncle, says like, I know a guy who can get a gun. Like and everybody's like, oh, stop it. And everybody in the movie uses knives. Every death is knife based or natural or something like that. So I mean, guns are not really a thing, and everybody has to use knives. And I don't know if the random, obviously, I would like to think a random person knows this. It's like any idiot can kind of kill somebody with a gun. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to kill somebody with a knife.
No, it's up close and personal, and it's much more visceral. You're getting their blood on you. It's just brutal. I mean, it's hand-to-hand combat.
On top of that, the kind of realistic thing about what happens especially in the bathhouse knife fight. Knife wounds are fairly. I'm not saying they're the most survivable thing in the world, but it's not the easiest thing to do to kill somebody with just like a stab. Like, stabbings can be pretty survivable in the right situations. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be happy with it, but I'm saying like a knife has a tendency to be in, out, clean, or in, and then you can pull it out pretty clean without any sort of damage. Bullets, the ballooning of bullets whenever they really mess things up.
Yeah. So that ballistic concussive force that's behind bullets. So even though you might have a wound like the size of a pencil, the damage that is done inside is much more severe. So I get your point. Whereas a knife might, if it's that big of a wound, it's that big of a wound.
Yeah. There's not a lot of mystery to it. Yeah. So there's a really lot to get into with this movie. So I had mentioned the director is David Cronenberg. Cronenberg this is his most straightforward of movie, if that makes any sense. When I say that, anybody who has seen a David Cronenberg movie knows that that's the truth. He does a lot of
this is the most like straight laced one.
Yeah, absolutely. I say this with, okay, so he got to start kind of doing like early horror movies and or like kind of weird stuff like that. But then he kind of the most mainstream thing he's ever done is The Fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Really?
Yes, he made that back in the 80s. He also did The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken. Really cool movie. He touches people and can see their futures, and it's that's probably the most. Those are probably the two most accessible films he has. But otherwise, he does a lot of body horror. I think a couple of weeks ago we talked about the movie Crash, about the guys who fetishize car accidents. That was a Cronenberg movie. He did Dead Ringers, a really messed up movie where Jeremy Irons plays twin gynecologists and the shenanigans they get into. That's a wild movie. The movie just before this one he made was called A History of Violence, also with Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, I've heard of that.
That's a good one. I encourage you to look up to that. That'll come up in a poll for a dumbass later. But I mean, he doesn't do normal stuff. He did like all the movies he does are extreme. Either extremely there's extreme to it. It's not necessarily like like an extreme like it's all visceral and all. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it might be the sexuality it's visceral. Sometimes it's the blood. Sometimes it's just the The Fly has some extremely incredible stuff, but it's about a guy turning into a fly and based off the sci-fi of that. So that makes sense of it. But I mean, this is the one where all the deaths are pretty straightforward. Like, okay, there's stabbings, but even that, like, there's some. It's really visceral and violent, and it's not just a nice clean cut. It's whenever the kid gets his throat slit, he has a scarf over his neck. He doesn't just slump over and die. He has to pull it down, and you have to see the cut, and you have to see the blood come out. That's a Cronenberg thing. Whenever he got his throat cut, I'm like, it's not very there it is. Like it is. Okay, that's there. He always has to take it to that extreme. It's just what this guy does. So I really think it's interesting how he does things. And it kind of, he has his own style to it. And this is the most unlike his other styles, other films. It's really interesting, actually, because there's not really. Go ahead.
I can appreciate that, though.
I can too.
Like, because I mean, you look at a lot of movies and some guy just comes up behind a guy and then he just goes down. That's not the way getting your throat cut is really gonna go. I
have to mention. So I watched the movie Uncharted the other day. It's based on a video game. It has Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. It's very, very not good. Well, at one point in the movie, Antonio Banderas was the bad guy for about half the movie, and he's betrayed, and he has his throat slit. But it's a PG-13 movie to appeal to the masses. So he gets it, and he goes, and he falls down. And his neck's like this, and it looks like somebody had a red Expo marker, and just right. Like it's like, come on, like it's a $200 million movie. You can't put a little more effort into it than that. Like,
if you've ever seen an arterial bleed,
yes, it is. It's not,
or the remnants of an arterial bleed. I mean, your body. If you cut the jugular, so yes. We're talking about. Yeah. That thing is like a garden hose with your thumb on it.
Yeah.
And basically, turn your garden hose on full blast and go.
Yep. Blood pressure, that's what it's measuring. Blood pressure, it's high. And
I've seen places where you can see an arterial spurt and then one's lower and one's lower.
Because the blood pressure, because there's less and less blood, obviously. So I mean, it's one of those things. Like, yeah, it's not a clean thing, and this is what this movie does. It does a great job of like, okay, it's not Hollywood-esque. It's not, and nothing's really clean in this movie. It's all kind of has this dirty over. I mean, even things that like the restaurant is a very fancier place, but but like everybody's kind of greasy. Like it's just kind of the way it is. There's something I want to talk about real quick. So I thought it was funny. Okay. So David Cronenberg is a director. This takes place in London, Russian mobsters. David Cronenberg is from Canada. Naomi Watts, playing an English woman, is Australian. Viggo Mortensen, playing a Russian, is American. Armin Mueller-Stahl, playing a Russian, is German. Vince Cassel, playing a Russian, is French. Naomi Watts' mother, Sinead Cusack, Irish. Even Uncle Stepan, Polish. So I don't know why all that happens, and it all takes place in London. Nobody's from London. It doesn't really have any reason to be in London besides the, I guess, the gun restrictions and, why Russian gangsters would be in, the United States or something like that. It's more of the Wild West. But I think there's a level of lack of authenticity, but there's nothing that I don't believe. Like,
yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Kind of.
Like,
yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I guess
I'd heard an interview from a language expert, and he was critiquing movie accents. And he goes to Viggo Mortensen in this movie, and he said he doesn't miss anything. He gets everything right, but it still doesn't fit. Like, it doesn't feel like that's how somebody should talk. Like, all the accents are there, all the intonations are there, everything on paper.
Look Russian.
He doesn't look Russian. It fits. Everything fits on paper, but the execute, like, it's a car with all the parts there. Everything runs, and it just doesn't feel right. Like,
yeah. So I would contrast this movie in terms of accents and acting jobs when it comes to playing someone
authentic, yeah,
from a different, nationality. I would contrast this with Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Because everyone, as far as I know, everyone in Inglourious Bastards, if they were French, they were French.
Yep.
French, the actor was French. If the character was German, the actor was German.
Yeah.
If the character was American, the actor was American. And I think there's a certain there's just something you can't replicate there.
Yeah.
With mannerisms, accent. I mean, I don't know. There's just something you can't fake about that.
Yeah, and it doesn't diminish how everybody's doing. Everybody's doing a great job in this movie. Everybody, like, I buy it. Like, my suspension of disbelief is never to the point where I'm like, these guys aren't Russian. It's like, I know Vincent Cassel is French. I don't care. Like he's greasy. He does the job. His role is there. I'm fine with that. Like, it doesn't have to be like he has to be Russian. He has to be from Russia. It's fine. I'm not against that. Right. There's just some sort of small detachment with it. I don't know what it is. And I think Viggo's a great example. Like, everything he does is awesome. Everything he does in this movie is cool. Yeah. He doesn't really, it all feels right. He literally lays it all out there. He doesn't hold all that kind of stuff. But there's just that balls out. He's kicking people butt ass naked, like all that kind of stuff. He goes for it, and it all works. But it's not all the way there. There was. I don't know. I don't know what you change. I think it would have to be a across the board thing. But I like the film as it is, so I don't know what I would do differently.
Yeah, I think I can agree with you on that. I mean, tremendous performances from everybody.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't say Viggo Mortensen needs to do this different.
Yeah, not at all.
I mean, I really can't critique it. It's just not.
Yep. Completely agree.
I mean, it's kind of like the fake Oreo cookie that doesn't really get soggy in the milk the way a real Oreo is.
Yeah. Like it says, the off-brand stuff. You're like, it's close. It gets the job done. I'm not complaining, but it's not an Oreo. Like, It's 100%. Exactly.
Whenever your mom buys the off-brand cereal when you're a kid, and you're
It's like,
like,
it's just not the same. Like it's
not Lucky Charms, actually.
you want Cheez-Its. You want a bag of Cheez-Its. You eat a cheese nip and you're like, it's good. It's not Cheez-It. Like it's just, and this is the cheese nip of film. Great film. It's not Cheez-Its. Yep. So
that's a new term. I mean, we've got fair cheeseburger,
cheese nip films. Yeah.
Yeah, cheese nip. But no, it's a very good cheese nip.
I agree. Excellent cheese nip. So do you have what's your Naomi Watts history? So she's really interesting as an actress because we had talked about this with George Clooney a couple last week actually, where she was struggling for so long as an actress. She's from Australia. She was famously, her best friend is Nicole Kidman, has been for a long time. So as Nicole Kidman became famous, she's like, well, I'm still an actress, and she's still doing bit parts, all this kind of stuff. She struggles for a long time. She finally gets into a movie called a David Lynch movie called Mulholland Drive from 2001. It's an extremely bizarre movie. It's exceptional. She is exceptional in it. Yeah. As soon as she's in that movie, she launches into stardom, and then she's never not Naomi Watts again. You
see her boobies.
Yeah. So Mulholland Drive is definitely one of those movies where it's like Monsters Ball and Mulholland Drive are the two movies. You're like, I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen a scene. Yeah. So like, yeah. So it's like,
we should just add a segment on here called like boobies or no boobies. And just say, Jake, are there boobies in it? I say, this is a no boobie.
This is a no. Okay, Jake, is Naomi Watts a boobies actress or a no boobies actress?
I've seen her boobies.
She's a boobies actress. I agree. So I'm so she makes her so Mulholland Drive makes her way into the stardom, and then she gets an Oscar nomination a couple of years later for a movie called 21 Grams, an incredibly depressing movie. I do not suggest anybody go watch it if you ever want to have a good day. But it's still pretty good. Her and Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro. She makes her way up, still doing kind of like more mainstream stuff. And the more I think about it, she doesn't really do much in this movie. She's more of a plot device. She's sweet. I think she represents the human reality, the normal. And there's that scene whenever she gives the diary to Viggo Mortensen, and she comes out and she goes, "Why are you doing this?" And she's like, at the diner, and he specifically says, "You need to be in there with normal people. This is not what you are, and you don't need to be involved in this because this is only going to be bad." By the way, she is never in any danger. She is never threatened. She has vague threats, but I mean, she is never under any threat herself. She is never.
She doesn't have a gun to her head.
Nobody has a gun to her head. She never is. She's like, "Oh, don't go in there." No, it's never. It's a very much a separated thing. It's either you're a mobster or you're not, and maybe you'll get involved in it. But I mean, it's not really something like that. Okay, so do you buy the undercover aspect of this movie? Because as it ends, an undercover FSB agent is now the head of the London side of the Russian mob. So does that ring true to you, or does it like how the crazy, like the only crazy things you really see Viggo Mortensen do is like, okay, he cuts the fingers off a dead body, but he puts a note to his handler so you're like, okay, I can understand that. And he has to have sex with a prostitute. But besides that, he doesn't actually do anything that wild. To essentially, I mean, he defends himself from Chechens, but I mean, he doesn't do anything that wild to become an undercover cop. Can you imagine what actual wild things you would have to do to infiltrate the actual Russian mob?
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I've watched interviews with guys that infiltrated the Hells Angels and things like that. deep undercover for years.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. But I mean, the only undercover work I've ever done has been online.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Pose it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Online personalities.
Yeah.
And so man, I would not want to immerse myself in that.
Do you buy it? I mean, do you buy the general idea that that's realistic? I know realistic in a film is kind of, you have a little break to it, but I mean, does it ring true? They're like, okay, I'm on board with this.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, because I mean, there's been undercover guys that have been made men in the Italian mob.
Oh, really?
I mean, guys have gotten patched in for Hell's Angels. I mean, guys have become made men.
The level of commitment is there. So, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I guess if you don't give a shit about your life, then I wouldn't want to do it. But yeah, no, it's certainly not unheard of that undercover cops have become full-fledged members.
I mean, Donnie Brasco. I mean, probably the greatest example. Yeah, I mean, he was like, I mean, it's a prime example of exactly. So yeah, that's a good point. So, it's really interesting. Kind of there's a lot of under stuff going on in this movie. One of the more interesting things is the character Kirill, played by Vince Cassell, the son. He's pretty much a fuck up, and the reason Viggo Mortensen is able to get to the levels he is because he recognizes he's a fuck up and tries to keep him in line. My question is, go ahead.
Kind of seems like the dog walker for like the dad, the crime boss is kind of like, would you take care of this fucker?
Yeah, it's like this. It's like, stop it. Yeah, all the kind of stuff.
Like, whenever he potties, can you pick it up? And
so the central motivation for why the initial killing of the Russian guy is always kind of vague. Whenever he's being disposed of, he calls him a pederast. But at the same time, they ask, the Simeon asks Viggo Mortensen, it's like, well, why did he? It's like, well, he called him a queer. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, that's why. The better question is, I think he's gay. I think he's probably is gay, but I don't think he, in his role as the son of the head of the London organization of the Russian mob, do you think he probably can't be gay because he's not allowed to. It's not even something he's like, oh, I'm trying to live your truth. It's just like, no. This is like, if you are, they're probably going to kill you. Like, this is.
Yeah. Whenever you're dealing with a criminal organization that basically was born out of the prison system.
Yeah.
You're either a top dog or you're a bitch.
Yeah. So
I mean, sorry, that's not my term.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's the term of, it's like, you're either a big man in prison,
a top or a bottom, basically.
A top or a bottom. Sorry. Exactly. That's no, that's I mean, in the terms of the prison hierarchy. Yeah, that makes sense. So in that sense, it's kind of funny there. And especially, so Simeon decides to patch in Nikolai, give him the stars, and Kirill is talking to him about it, and they kind of hug, and it lingers a little bit, and then Kirill makes Nikolai with the awkward sex with the prostitute. I also think it's funny, he's so greasy in this movie. Why is he? I think it's a nice contrast, actually, because Simeon is very straight-laced, very clean cut. You don't see any of his tattoos. And Kirill is always tattooed down. You see a little bit on his chest. He probably smells like dog shit. Cannot imagine he smells very good. But speaking of tattoos, Jake, I believe you had a little something about tattoos going on here, correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, believe it or not, I like tattoos. I get, yeah. My wife is as well. Ben has 2 or 3, I guess.
Yep.
but tattoos are huge in Russian organized crime.
I mean, even they say it tells your life story.
Yeah, a detective.
The detective says it, yeah.
Early on, he was like, you can read their biography on it, and basically, for the war, that is your resume. It's like tattooing your resume on yourself.
Okay.
I mean, it indicates rank, you know, whether or not you're a made dude, how many times you've been in prison, what prisons you've been to, so on and so forth. So like if, you know, you're a ranking officer, they'll tattoo epaulets.
Okay. That's what, when the dead guy said this guy was a captain. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, they'll get to 2 stars on their shoulders and then 2 stars on their knees. 2 stars on their knees indicating that they'll never kneel for anybody.
Nice.
And there's some things like you'll see in the movie cathedrals.
Yes,
like
Mortensen had it on his back. Yeah.
Each dome on the Orthodox Church cathedral is a prison sentence. That's what that indicates. And then also like chains, barbed wire, that means a lot. Skulls mean a lot.
I mean, it's the scene itself where Nikolai is being invited to be in. He's in his underwear. He stands up in front of all these bosses and being like, and they're going this, and this. It's like your dad was this. You were here. You were in solitary confinement here. All this kind of stuff, and they're kind of just peppering him based off of what his stuff says. And it makes so every single. It's not just like, oh, you have this tattoo, it means this. It's like you have this tattoo in this way with this feature that means this, and this. Yep. Wow. Yep. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. And then something, whenever you notice, you know, basically whenever he's trying to be made, and he's standing before the bosses, they insult his dad because he was a government
worker. Yeah.
And he says something about his mom, and they're like, your mom's a whore. And he's like, okay, yep, this is all.
Yep. I've been dead. I've been dead since I was 15. Yep. Like,
so, okay. Well, the funny thing about the tattoos specifically within Russian organized crime was dating back to the Tsarist years and early communist rule. They actually would tattoo, I mean, in the Cyrillic alphabet, this is an acronym, but it was for a person who had been sentenced to hard labor. Basically, you've been in the gulag.
Yeah.
And it KAT to
Anglify. Yeah.
Yeah. And so initially the Russian government or the Soviet government would tattoo like KAT on people. So it's kind of the ultimate scarlet letter.
Yeah.
Well, they unwittingly created this
system
culture where it became like wearing medals in the underground. You know what I mean? And so ironically, the government actually probably created this culture of tattooing in the organized crime.
It's interesting. It's like they didn't see it as any. It's like, well, they're going to be, you know, everybody's going to be outcast and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, it's good. It's like it's the Frankenstein you didn't mean to create.
Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense.
and actually, among their members, they call their tattoos top coats and tails.
Oh, really? That makes sense.
Just like you're getting dressed up and you're going in for a job interview. Whenever you stand naked in front of the board,
you're telling here's your resume. Yep.
They can see it. They can see how many years you've done. They can see what gulags you've been in, how many people you've killed,
yeah,
so on and so forth. So the tattoo aspect of it is really fascinating to me.
That is, I agree. And he just takes it like a champ too. Like can you imagine tattoos on your knees? I can't imagine being very fun. Seems like a tender place. I mean, you've had them all over the place. Where's the most painful one you've had? Underneath here. I bet you it's just so you just like
right.
And not to mention, there's not really a good way for you to lay. Are you on your stomach and you doing the back of your arm like that, or?
I think I was laid out like this.
So
it was everything I could do not to come off that table. It was many hours.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It was tough.
I've heard a lot of those are bad. Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those moments when you're laying there saying, I'm spending a lot of money being this much pain. I don't know why. I'm not real sure why.
That's a good point. All right, Jake. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Poll for a Dumbass. Today we are going to be doing Oscar nominee and lead actor of this movie, Viggo Mortensen, a man who has had a long and storied career of going back and forth between things you have never heard of and things you might have heard of. He made his, we're going to start, I have 20 films for you today to see how good you do. I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to say you're going to get 6. I don't think you're going to have much knowledge of the movies he has. Okay, so I'm not doing every single one of his movies because I'm like, Jake, have you seen Fresh Horses, Tripwire? Have you seen The Reflecting Skin and The Indian Runner? Like that's not the answer. Like, I'm going to hit mostly the highlights. Okay. All right. So he made his debut in 1985 as Moses Heckleiter, the handsome Amish man in the movie Witness.
No.
With Harrison Ford. It's a good film. Harrison Ford is a cop who has to protect an Amish boy and has to infiltrate the community, essentially. Oh. It's been a long time. It's one of those 80s movies our mom probably watched and we might have seen in passing, but yeah, it's not one you're like, yeah, oh yeah, definitely that one. How about one I'm pretty sure you've seen, a America Plus staple, Young Guns 2.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, he's I believe he's who's the guy that supposedly killed Billy the Kid? Pat Garrett. He's one of the guys going along with Pat Garrett. So so all right, Young Guns 2, good start. How about 1993's Carlito's Way?
Nope.
Another mob movie. That's where I believe Al Pacino plays a Puerto Rican. It's not bad. It's not my favorite, but not bad. All right.
Know why Al Pacino has ever had a career in anything.
I really like some of the things he does, but man, he takes some weird shots, and everybody's just like, yeah, he's so great in Scarface. I'm like, is he though? Like, all right. So, he's a little bit of success, a lot of independent stuff all the way through 1994. Finally, kind of reaches the mainstream in 1995. He was in a movie called The Prophecy where he plays Satan. That's not the one. The other one in 1995, playing Lieutenant Wepps, the nuclear missile officer in Crimson Tide.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great, like,
all right, that rang a bell.
Yeah. There's, of course, there's so many character actors and random faces in Crimson Tide. You're like, hey, is that James Gandolfini? He's like, oh, is that? It's like, oh, Viggo Mortensen. Yes. He's like, yeah. So yes, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Really good in that one. So he kind of starts to become a little more prominent and stuff. How about the fair cheeseburger that is the Sylvester Stallone movie Daylight.
No.
Oh, it's a Poseidon Adventure knockoff. A bunch of people get trapped in like a tunnel in New York, and he's in there, and I think he's like the first or second death in that movie. But I'm a little bit surprised. How about 1997's G.I. Jane?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things you've seen, but you're like, what is that movie really? I know you know what it is, but
it's a fair cheeseburger that gives you diarrhea.
It tries to be that, and then it
tries, but you end up with food poisoning.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
How about a remake of an older movie, 1998's A Perfect Murder with Michael Douglas and Gwyneth Paltrow? No. How about the other 1998 remake? He was in the remake of Psycho.
Nope.
See, this is the most mainstream stuff he's in, and I'm not surprised you haven't seen much of it. All right, so now we're to the heavy hitters. 2001, 2002, 2003. Have you seen the Lord of the Rings movies?
I have never seen a single Lord.
Not a single one, really. No. He's really good in it. He's very good in it. He's very heroic. He makes it work. He commits to it. It all works. He has a really great British accent too, for some reason. But regardless,
the bow and arrow guy in it.
No, the bow and arrow. That's Orlando Bloom. He's just kind of like the main guy with the sword. The last movie is The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. He is the aforementioned king. So,
I know nothing of Lord of the Rings.
You're not much of a franchise guy. You're not much Bond, Marvel movies. Lord of the Rings. It's like you're not much of. It's not really up your style.
Not really. No.
Okay, how about something a little more your style? 2004's Hidalgo.
Love it.
You love Hidalgo. I've never seen it.
Are you kidding me?
Really? I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No.
Okay, you do love Hidalgo. Okay. Okay.
I love Hidalgo. It's a great movie. I mean, it's got everything. I mean, it's a Western. I mean, Viggo Mortensen, he kind of plays the tough guy in it. Mm-hmm. He's got like a double barrel 10-gauge shotgun.
He dresses cool.
Yeah. There's a love triangle.
Yeah.
Involving Renee Zellweger. But I mean, if I was going to lose a friend over a woman, it wouldn't be over a woman. It perpetually looks like she just sucked on a lemon. Jake,
I agree. I agree. I also like that movie. That movie is called Appaloosa.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to get to Appaloosa because I know I've seen Appaloosa. I like Appaloosa.
That's why they call it Pull for a Dumbass, folks.
So Appaloosa was in 2008. That's the one with him and Ed Harris and Renee Zellweger. Yeah, Appaloosa is great. Hidalgo,
that's a great movie. Hidalgo, I don't know.
Hidalgo, he plays a long distance
horse movie, huh?
Yeah, it's a horse movie. Yeah. A long distance rider, Frank Hopkins. Yes. So, have you seen Hidalgo?
Yeah, but it's been a while.
Okay,
he's like a Pony Express rider or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's like a long distance rider race over the across the Sahara or something like that. It's one of those like Disney like miracle type movies.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier you hadn't seen A History of Violence, so but that's definitely one. That's a great movie. It's wild, but it does a lot of cool things. Eastern Promises, obviously. Appaloosa, which you're a fan of. And then 2000. Not Hidalgo. Appaloosa. That doesn't he have like a little pencil thin mustache that really suits him the entire movie?
In Appaloosa?
Is that my imagination? Regardless, he's cool in Appaloosa. Yeah. How about 2009's Cormac McCarthy adaptation, The Road?
The Road.
It's probably super. I have a feeling if you would have seen it, you'd know because it's so depressing. It's really dark, really sad. But Okay, not surprised. We're going to skip ahead a couple of years because he did a lot of independent stuff. I doubt you've seen the movie where he played Sigmund Freud. So that's another Cronenberg movie, A Dangerous Method. How about 2016's Captain Fantastic? He is living in the woods with his kids off the grid. Really cool movie, got an Oscar nomination for it. He really likes being naked in movies because he's naked in that one too. I really enjoy it. I know some people who hate it. My wife loves. No, the movie Captain Fantastic.
Oh, I thought you just liked seeing him. Sorry.
No, Captain Fantastic. It's a good movie. Check it out. It's nice, heartwarming, sweet movie, and just happened to see his dick.
Right.
How about 2018's the infamous Green Book?
No.
You haven't seen Green Book?
No.
Man, it's almost worth doing on this podcast just for the sake of doing it. But maybe one of the most controversial Best Picture winners we ever had.
I have a Green Book.
Sure. Not really the same. That was his most recent Oscar nomination. He plays a driver to a jazz musician. It is some super clumsy race relation stuff. But it's not as terrible as people say it is. But he's been in some other stuff since then. Earlier this year, he was in a movie called Crimes of the Future, another Cronenberg movie, another weird one. And we've gone over the movie 13 Lives, which you have seen, about the divers. So
very good.
6 out of 20. I'm not
good.
I'm not surprised. And he has a very extensive. He goes back and forth, but I mean, okay, so he does in 2012. He was a supporting character in the Kerouac adaptation On the Road. He's in this movie called Everyone Has a Plan, which I'd never heard of. 2014, he's in a movie called The Two Faces of January, which I'd never heard of. Jauzha, a movie I'd never heard of, and a movie called Far From Men that I've never heard of. I'm a film critic. I think I should know about these movies, but I just don't know about them. Then he goes Captain Fantastic, Green Book. He makes a directorial debut in a movie called Falling, which I'd heard about, but I don't know. I haven't heard much good stuff about it. And then Crimes of the Future, 13 Lives. So he goes all over the place and be like, I'm going to make this random ass movie. By the way, I was in 3 Lord of the Rings movies, so I'll never have to work again if I don't want to. So it's a nice little freedom that he gets to have between the two. Yeah. So Jake doesn't know Viggo Mortensen, everybody. Not a surprise.
I don't even know what movies I've watched.
Hey, Appaloosa, Hidalgo, they're no way the same movie, but whatever.
There's horses in both.
As soon as you said Renee Zellweger, I'm like, I don't think Renee Zellweger's in Hidalgo.
I like how you're like, Jake.
That's why we do this thing, buddy. All right, buddy.
You can't save me from myself.
It is that time. I think you need to put me in front of. I need to strip down to my underwear and explain away myself.
Yep.
It's time.
All right. You're in the hot box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia. Sometimes it's talking about how I pee in baptismals, but whatever.
All right. How many tattoos do you have?
I have 2. I have no original tattoos that you don't have.
Right.
We have the same one right here. Us and our other brother. Yep. Oh. Wrong side. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So it means brotherhood in Latin. I have that one, and then I have our family seal on the middle of our back. Yours is on your. There it is, right there. Yep. It's upside down, but yep. Yours is. Yeah. And mine's in the middle of my back, so I only have 2.
Yeah. All right. What was the most painful one?
It was the one on my back. The one.
Right.
Right.
Because I have one right in the middle, and I mean it's not that one. It was a squad crest on the unit I was on, and Oh my God.
So the one in the one in the middle of my
pretty cool,
back,
Rick.
it's the same size as the one on your arm, but it took 2 hours for them to do the outline. And it was early October, but I remember it was kind of a cold day. So I had my shirt off and they do it in the middle of my back and they're like, okay, take a little break and we'll do the coloring. So I'm going outside and I'm sitting there in the cold. I'm like, that sucked. And then they did the coloring, which is no better. So it was another 2 hours. So it was I'm thrilled with it, but it was very, very unpleasant. Originally they were going to have me, I was going to lay over the, like that, Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds. But and then I was twitching around too much. They're like, no, lay flat. So,
Yeah.
I do remember though, whenever I got this one, you said I looked like a corpse on a slab because of how white I was. I believe at the time you were a lifeguard, so you were a little dark. But
yeah, I'm a little darker complected than you.
so how many do you know the count of how many you have?
I don't. I was kind of talking to my wife about that, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to count as.
Yeah. Is this three? Is this one? Yeah. I know what you mean. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I've probably at least 20 sessions.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the longest session you had?
It had to be the color for all of that, and it was about, I bet it was about 7-8 hours. It was a full day of it.
Yep, and full day of you going. Pretty
Well,
much. I
was pretty much out of it by the end of it.
oh, I'm sure you're just like whatever.
Yeah.
You're in this haze. I got you. Okay.
All right. So what is the principal ingredient in borscht?
I believe it is beets.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I've never had it.
I've never had it either. And in that scene where Armin Mueller-Stahl gives Naomi Watts some borscht, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll have some." Ooh, that was delicious. And I think to myself, "There's no chance, none." It's like there's no chance it's good. Like
it's terrible.
It's one of those.
It's like something they invented in a gulag.
It's it's the kind of the ratatouille principle. It's not necessarily, is it good, or have you just had it your entire, like as a kid? Were you a poor kid who had to throw beets into a big pot and it's like, well, what random meats do we have to make is it good, or is it just what you've had since you were a kid? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, obviously this is a very violent film.
Yes.
It doesn't pull any punches as far as the violence and combat scenes go.
Yes.
When was the last time you were in a physical fight?
I've been this is an interesting question, because I have been punched without being in a fight, if that makes any sense. I was working as a
that's called assault. Yeah.
Well,
you got beat up.
No. I was not beat up. I had a single punch. So I was working as a doorman at a bar that I was frequenting, and I was not a bouncer by any means. I'm not that kind of a guy to bounce. I just literally checking IDs at the door. So there's this really, really, really drunk guy, taking him outside, and he's starting some stuff outside. I'm outside kind of next to the door, and he's kind of swinging generally, and he catches me, and it's just or this side. And I remember being cut, like, just like, and somebody's like, well, who was that? And it's like, what'd you do? And I'm like, he has no idea who I am. He did not know he hit anybody. He definitely has no ill will against me. It was just a drunk guy who happened to hit me. Now, our other brother was right next to us, right next to me at the time. And as soon as I got hit, I'm like, he's not going to react to this well. So I really popped back like it was fine. So as far as like actually being in a physical altercation, I'm not sure it is, not as an adult. That's the only time as an adult. So
That's great.
I'm not much of I'm a lover, not a fighter, Jake.
Right. So that actually segues into another question. So, as you mentioned, there's no guns
Nope.
in this movie. There's only the only time weapons are involved in fights, it's a knife.
Correct.
So, without mentioning any names, anything like that, have you ever seen a knife pulled during a fight?
What a coincidence you bring that up. Yes, during that exact fight, not me,
Someone came
someone-
to your aid.
someone was the drunk man who was so drunk he didn't know who he was hitting and hit other people. And he came at another guy, and the guy pulled the knife and went. It's not like a butcher knife or anything. I mean, even if he'd have made contact, it would have been like, ow. Or now if he gets stabbed with it, it's probably like he's so drunk he'd go, "You stabbed me," like one of those type of things. It wasn't. You're not going to be like this is not like a prison shanking situation, but yeah, pull the knife out, and I don't think they made any contact or even tried. But
Nah.
alcohol's a bad situation whenever tempers are up.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there that night.
You were
so-
not. So it's okay.
I didn't pull the knife.
And nobody got stabbed, nobody got arrested. So
Everything's
no harm,
fine.
no foul.
Yeah. Okay. What are the principal ingredients traditionally in Russian prison tattoos? One's done in, as they call it, the zone
Okay, so
in prison. So
how do they make
their
it?
prison ink?
I'm going to assume it's pin ink and gunpowder.
Why do they have gunpowder?
I don't know.
Do you think they issue them Bics?
Do you remember when
Where they getting-
Well, do you remember whenever I thought that what was the gun caliber? I don't know certain things, and I just sound stupid when I say them. So my guess would be
Well, I
some-
didn't even know what movie I was talking about earlier.
pin ink is my guess, and maybe vodka. What is it?
It is melted down rubber from boot heels
Oh, interesting.
combined with urine.
Sure.
So basically, if I just melt down my boots and then take your
Pee on it?
baptismal water,
Perfect.
then
l-
you can set me up.
Well, so
Got an equal and
so there was the funny thing about it. So in the scene where Viggo Mortensen is in the bathhouse, and they're like, they tell the Chechen assassins, it's like, well, he's in there, he's got the stars right here. He's like, he got those less than 24 hours ago. And I go on thinking, it's like, well, why isn't it taped up? It's like, you're in a sauna, it's all wet out there. It's like, got to keep that thing dry. Like it's
Yeah.
or
yeah,
or it's
we're
like,
worried about sanity.
or he's,
Yeah.
he's sitting there and he's in this, it's like, oh, I got to itch it, and he's smacking it instead of scratching it. He's like, oh, there's lots of things I keep thinking about. But yeah, so
Yeah.
boot urine tattoos. Maybe boot urine dries quicker. Who knows?
Well, they might be onto something. But actually, I was looking, if you use your own urine, that's what they would use for the vor.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's like you get your own.
Your own pee. in it.
Interesting.
But they had bitches who are either homosexuals or they make you,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever, but they would tattoo eyeballs either on their butt or on their hips, but they would use someone else's urine.
That's some wild power stuff right there.
Yeah.
That's a
So if someone else's pee goes in your tat, it means you're
all-
a
so
homosexual.
even the substance your tattoos are made of means something.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well,
All right.
okay.
You're out of the hot box.
All right. Well, That was how informative. As
There you go.
yeah, the one thing I want to add about the naked knife fight, I admit
That is brutal.
it's a brutal fight, but the interesting thing about it is not Viggo being naked and fighting. It's the Chechens not going, stop, like,
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. I need you to put some clothes on. That would be my
just some underwear, dude. Or it's like, can you just like notch up that towel? It's like, I really don't want to see your dangles flying around. Like, even at the end, like the guy's stabbed and he's crawling all over him trying to, because he's, he doesn't exactly have the strength. It's like, oh, he's naked. No, like,
yeah. Get off of
yeah. Well, Jake, that just about does it for this. What is your film rating for Eastern Promises?
I really, really, really like it.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated with organized crime, specifically Russian organized crime. And so, I mean, I really like it.
Yeah.
It's dark. I mean, yeah, it ain't uplifting or anything like that.
Nope.
But I really like it. I think it's very well performed. I think it's well researched. I think, there's a lot of people that were speaking Russian that didn't know Russian. I think they did a good job at that. That's going to be a tremendous challenge.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I really like it. I mean,
I also really like it too. Yeah.
It doesn't make any list. But I really like it.
So I really like it as well. I had a 4.0 out of 5.0. It had the bad luck of coming out in 2007, one of the best film years ever. So I mean, when you're going up against No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood and Zodiac and some other stuff like that, you're just like you're already behind the 8 ball. You're Yep, exactly. So that just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, the Common Man. Thanks so very much for joining us. We have a fun episode next week. Hopefully, my hope, it's more fun if Jake hates the movie, but it's a possibility he might like it. We're doing Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive next week, so you guys have some fun with that one. You can follow me on
hates my guts.
You can follow me.
This is my blood.
You're Vor in my heart, buddy. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBin, on Letterboxd and Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Mellor Movies. Check out my website, Ice Cream for Freaks, and you can follow my other writing at The Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. I got a review of the new Marilyn Monroe movie Blonde coming out next week on Netflix. That'll be in a couple days. Also reviewing The Woman King. We did Good Night Mommy next week. Last week, Naomi Watts movie on Netflix. It's not very good. But you can also find me on other pods on the David Lewis of podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you?
Нет, нельзя способа, до свидания.
Indeed, whatever he just said. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so very much for joining us. I really appreciate everybody's feedback. Our Oh Brother Where Art Thou is our most popular episode yet. Keep it coming until hopefully this is our next new popular episode. So thank you very much. We will catch you guys next week. You'll have a good one.
Спасибо.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?